And TymeBank is targeting a primary listing in New York by 2028 and a secondary listing on the JSE. The digital bank expects to complete its latest funding round by the fourth quarter to support expansion plans. And join me now to discuss these plans in greater detail is CEO Jonker. Thank you so much for your time. Let's start off with the intention to list TymeBank. Has this always been part of the vision?
Yes, very good to see you again, and hello to all your viewers. We've very much committed to our shareholders as long as 3 years back that ultimately we would want to list the business, and that the ideal would be, once we've built the business out across multiple countries, the ideal would be an international listing. Yes, so very much has been on the cards for a while.
All right. Well, I mean, just before actually we get into your expansion into those countries, just looking at the decision to look at an overseas primary listing and a secondary listing on the JSE, what is behind that?
You know, for a business like ours, who has the ambition to be a world-leading multi-country bank, it makes sense to go in search of capital markets where the markets are the deepest possible markets. And the deepest capital markets in the world are in New York. It's the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. And so that's what really makes sense for us. We think of ourselves and following in the footsteps of the likes of Nubank, which is a Brazilian digital bank that listed on the New York Stock Exchange and is now worth around 57 or 59 billion dollars, about R1 trillion, roughly the value of the entire South African banking industry. So those are the kinds of opportunities one gets if you can execute well internationally.
All right. Well, talking about opportunity, of course, let's go into this multi-country expansion. Obviously, you're in South Africa, Vietnam, Philippines, and also Indonesia soon, if I'm not mistaken. What is informing your decision in terms of the kinds of countries that you are going for at this point? And do you plan to expand further from Africa and Asia?
Yes, so we pick the countries we go into very carefully with reference to the market opportunity, the size of the opportunity. We look for progressive regulators that allow us to do digital banking in the cloud. We also look for markets with well-established retail partners. As you know, a big part of our success has been being partnered with Pick n Pay and Boxer and TFG. And there will be other partnerships also coming down the line. And so we also look for countries where those partners exist and want to do business with us. And Southeast Asia are ideal. So I think the short answer is that between now and listing, we're probably not looking beyond Southeast Asia and Southern Africa. That will be our focus for now, is consolidating our footprint in these two geographies.
And actually, I mean, with this, expansion journey that you are on, what capital requirements are you looking at to build scale as you gear up to be listing ready?
Yes, you know, banking is a capital-intensive business, so it is a business where one always makes sure that you have enough capital. We are raising now in the vicinity of $150 million in this Series D that we're busy with. And we expect to have at least one more raise, which will be a Series E raise, somewhere between now and listing in 2028.
All right. And I mean, just, what expansion milestones can we look out for that you are planning on assuring up, at least in the short to medium term, particularly also looking at your product offering?
Yes, so from a geographic perspective, you've summarized it nicely. So job number one is to build on our profitability in South Africa to become a top 3 retail bank in South Africa. Job number 2 is to get to profitability in the Philippines. And we think we have a chance of becoming the top retail bank in the Philippines, given our pace of current growth. Job number 3 will be to launch a full bank in Vietnam, which we'll be doing about this time next year, and then to build that to profitability. And job number 4 is to successfully launch in Indonesia. If we can get all of those things done, we believe that the business will be in a good shape for listing. If all goes well, we're now at about 12.5 million customers. If all goes well, we can get close to 50 million customers by the time we list in 2028.
Just to wrap up the conversation, I mean, the competitive landscape in South Africa is quite intense and quite interesting because it happens under a backdrop of subdued economic growth. Do you look at that as a hurdle or maybe an opportunity?
It's such a good question. I always think of it as, in some ways, both. Yeah. There are always challenges to a low growth environment. We can see, for instance, that our SME customers have been quite slow to grow their debt in the last few months. Hopefully now, as things settle after the elections, we will see a speeding up of that part of the economy. So there are always challenges in a market like South Africa. And as you rightly say, the competitors in South Africa are really good. Now, as we go more internationally, we're starting to appreciate just how high quality the banks are in South Africa. But, the blessing with that is that in our first market, we get to compete against the best, which means that we're pretty battle hardened and fit by the time we go into the next markets. And that is contributing to our international expansion. We also think that as South Africans become more cost sensitive, as the inflation and everything else squeezes people's pockets, people are more open-minded about considering alternatives such as TymeBank to the more expensive banking options that they have today.
That was TymeBank CEO Jonker.